Is it hard to believe? During the busiest travel season, US airports looked almost empty. There were no long lines. No crowds at immigration. Even the announcements were quiet because there were almost no travelers. Since July last year, 10 international airlines stopped flying to the US airports like LAX, JFK, and O'Hare saw a 35% drop in international passengers in just 1 year. These airlines left quietly, without saying goodbye. It's like the US has been removed from the world's travel plans. America used to be a dream destination. Now, it's a big question mark. People from Europe and Asia are avoiding the US. In this video, we look at 10 airlines that are slowly leaving the US, not because other countries are more fun, but because the US is now too expensive, too difficult, and too uncertain to visit. Let's start with a small but important airline. PLAY Airlines from Iceland. Do you remember the $99 flights from Iceland to Boston? These were popular with young European travelers. But now, all of PLAY Airlines' US flights are gone. No news. No goodbye. Just gone. In March 2025, PLAY Airlines officially left the US market. In less than 1 year, the number of tourists from Northern Europe to the US dropped by over 60%. Even travel experts were shocked. They said they had never seen Europeans turn away from the US like this. Some people say the economy is to blame. But the real reason is trust and safety are gone. A new survey said 71% of travelers from Northern Europe now choose Canada or Japan instead of the US. Why? Because of social problems, hidden costs, and fear of bad healthcare. A tour guide in Iceland said this on the news. I used to bring hundreds of tourists to New York every month. Now I tell them to go to Tokyo or Vancouver. Not because I hate America, but because I worry they'll be shocked. Visiting the US now feels like a risk, not a dream. In 2015, the US was the favorite place to visit for Northern Europeans. But in 2025, travel visas from Iceland to the US dropped by 48%. At the same time, visas to Canada and South Korea doubled. Maybe America's problem isn't money. Maybe the problem is losing the warm welcome it once had. Northern Europeans may be a small group, but they spend a lot and visit again and again. If nothing changes, the US could lose more than $10 billion each year from just this group. This is not just a business loss. It's the end of a friendship that lasted nearly 100 years. The door from the North Atlantic has closed. And nobody is knocking. The US isn't closed because of laws. It's being left behind because it doesn't feel friendly anymore. If peaceful countries like Iceland stop visiting, what happens when Canada pulls away too? That's what we're going to talk about next. In 2025, Air Canada and WestJet cut 40% of their flights to the US. They stopped flying to places like Orlando, Las Vegas, New York, and Los Angeles. For the first time, Canadians now fly more inside their own country than to the US. This is not a small change. It's a big shift. In the past, Canadians traveled to Florida and California every winter. They wanted to escape the cold. But this winter, tour companies saw something different. Trips from Canada to the US dropped by 53%. But trips to British Columbia and Nova Scotia went up. A woman in Ottawa said on TV, "We used to treat the US like our backyard. But now I don't feel safe taking my kids there." Canadians are not avoiding the US because they are poor. They just don't trust the US anymore. Why? Because of social problems in tourist areas. Because of rising homelessness. Because everything is too expensive. A hotel room in downtown Los Angeles may cost $150 a night. Parking is $60 more. Plus extra service fees. For the same price in Quebec or Vancouver, you can stay at a peaceful resort. Breakfast included. No police sirens all night. When Canadians say the US is too loud and expensive, it's not just about flight prices anymore. A new report says 69% of Canadians over age 50 no longer think the US is a safe place for vacations. Almost half of those who visited the US in the last 10 years say they don't want to return soon. A retired woman from Toronto said this: "We used to drive to Seattle a few times every year. Now I don't even feel safe walking around there." Canadians used to bring almost $22 billion every year to the US tourism industry. But if they stop visiting, states like Florida, Arizona, Nevada, and Washington will lose big. Hotel workers, mall employees, restaurant staff, and tour guides will all feel the loss. When your closest neighbor stops visiting, you don't just lose a guest. You become alone. Canada didn't say goodbye. They just stopped coming. And maybe that's even sadder. If even Canada, a country with shared culture and borders, walks away, then what will countries like Germany, France, or Australia do? In the next part, we'll talk about Lufthansa and Air France. These are two of Europe's top airlines. And they are quietly removing the US from their top travel routes. One Lufthansa executive said this: "We are flying toward the future. And that future may no longer be in America." That statement should make people think. Just a few years ago, flights across the Atlantic showed America's strength. Now, those flights are disappearing. European airlines used to connect their capitals to the US, which was seen as the heart of the global economy. But now, flights to the US are no longer a top priority. They are only added if there are extra resources. In early 2025, Lufthansa and Air France KLM started cutting their US flights by 30 to 45%. Even major cities like Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, and Miami lost flights. At the same time, flights from Paris and Frankfurt to Tokyo, Seoul, and Delhi have doubled. Some of these flights are even given the best travel times. For the first time since World War II, Europe's top airlines are putting Asia before America. Why are European travelers turning away? Not because they dislike the US, but because of money problems and social risks. The US dollar keeps changing in value. There are more safety concerns in big cities. Airport fees, taxes, and US rules make it harder to fly there. Meanwhile, Asia has lower costs. Asian governments help their tourism industry. And more people in Asia are becoming middle-class travelers. Data shows that European travelers to the US dropped by 24% last year. But travel between Europe and Asia grew faster than ever since 2011. Do you remember when Lufthansa and Air France were the best way to get to the US? Have you flown from Paris or Frankfurt to New York, Chicago, or Miami? How do you feel about those trips now? Do they feel different? Please share your thoughts in the comments. A senior Air France pilot told a French news channel, "I used to dream of flying French tourists to New York. That was the biggest goal of my career. But now, I feel happier flying to Tokyo or Seoul. There, I don't worry about pickpockets or protests at the airport." On the same airline, with the same business class ticket from Frankfurt to New York, there are police checks, protesters outside, and taxi prices are sky high. But from Frankfurt to Tokyo, the airport is quiet, clean, and check-in is smooth like a 5-star hotel. When flying to the US no longer feels exciting, airlines start to make new choices. Flights between Europe and the US used to support trade, culture, and investment. But now, even big airlines like Lufthansa and Air France are flying less to the US. This doesn't just mean fewer ticket sales. It means the US is becoming less important in Europe's global plans. And slowly, travelers may start to forget about America. In the airline world, the scary part is not when planes stop flying. It's when the route disappears from the map. The US is not blocked. It's just no longer a priority. So, if Europe is turning away from the US, what about Asia? Asia once saw the US as a dream destination for study, travel, and even living. Now even that is changing. Let's talk about Jetstar, a young and popular airline from Australia. Jetstar has now stopped all its flights to the US. This decision shocked the entire US tourism industry. For years, Australians were some of the most loyal tourists to the US West Coast. They loved Disneyland, California beaches, Las Vegas, and Hawaii. But now, travel companies have noticed a big change. The number of Australians visiting the US dropped by 67% in just 18 months. Meanwhile, places like Japan, South Korea, and Vietnam saw big growth. Jetstar announced it has stopped flying to all US cities. No more flights to Los Angeles, Honolulu, or San Francisco. This is the first time in the airline's history that the US is completely off their map. The Sydney to LA flight was once a symbol of connection between East and West. But not anymore. Jetstar's CEO said that landing costs in the US have gone up by 38%. Visa rules are confusing. And travelers might face discrimination at the border. Our customers don't want to pay for trouble. Many older travelers say US airports don't offer help for seniors. There are no guides who speak Australian or native English. Emergency medical help is also too expensive. 84% of older travelers said they don't want to return to the US. Only 23% said the same about Japan. An elderly couple said, "We flew to LA in 2019. But when we landed, airport staff held us for 2 hours because of our passports. We felt like suspects, not visitors. We decided never to come back." They once dreamed of the Grand Canyon. But now they only remember the shame. Australian tourists spend a lot. They are polite, respectful, and often return again and again. When they stop coming, they don't complain loudly. They just quietly choose somewhere else. By the time anyone notices, it's too late. Losing Australian travelers is not just about fewer plane tickets. It's about losing kind, steady, and generous visitors. The US may need 10 years to win back their trust if that's even possible. Australians don't shout. They don't make angry videos or write complaint letters. They simply go where they feel welcome. And when kind people like them stop coming, it's time to ask a hard question. What has gone wrong? If Europe, Asia, and now Australia are all turning away from America, what happens if US airlines also start pulling back? In this part, we reveal something shocking. JetBlue, United, and other American airlines are cutting flights, closing airports, and even saying goodbye to their own people. There was a time when you could go to your local airport and catch a direct flight to New York, Orlando, or Atlanta. But now, people in places like Maine, Kentucky, or Idaho must drive 4 to 6 hours to find a cheap flight. In 2025, JetBlue stopped flying to 15 US airports. This includes cities like Syracuse, Worcester, Kansas City, and Fresno. It's the biggest cut JetBlue has ever made in its US flight network. And it's not just international flights. Even flights between US states are disappearing. Why is this happening? Fuel prices are up by 41% since 2022. There is a shortage of pilots, mechanics, and airport workers. Security at airports is getting worse. Violence, theft, and disorder are on the rise. Also, fewer people are flying from smaller airports. The FAA says that 38% of small airports have cut their flights by more than half. 6 US airlines have completely pulled out of at least one state. A retired JetBlue pilot from Ohio said, "I've flown to over 30 states. People were always happy to see our plane arrive. Now those flights are gone. It feels empty." JetBlue once said, "You above all," a slogan about putting people first. But now, they only keep routes that make money. They are ignoring poor states, rural towns, and communities with older people. When air routes are cut off, many things suffer. Businesses lose access to markets. Seniors can't visit doctors or see their families. Young people can't leave small towns to study or work in the city. The problem is not just a late flight, it's a delayed life. How can a country stay united when its bridges are being removed? Not because of war or disaster, but because these places no longer bring profit. Have you flown JetBlue or another local airline from your hometown? Is that flight still available? Please share the name of your city or airport in the comments, so we can see how many places are still connected. If JetBlue, the friendly airline that promised to connect everyone, is pulling out, what about bigger airlines like United? How will they treat small airports and older passengers? United Airlines was once the symbol of keeping America connected. Now, they're ending dozens of routes to small cities. This is no longer just about money. It's a message. In 2025, United stopped flying more than 30 domestic routes. Most of these were in central U.S. states like Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. Over 1,200 flights have been canceled each month. That means nearly 1 million people no longer have direct flights. Many of these routes were in service for 40 to 50 years and now they're gone in just one tourist season. You might think the Midwest, the heart of America, would never be abandoned. But think again. In Springfield, Illinois, the home of President Lincoln, United will stop all flights in 2025. In Fargo, North Dakota, weekends are now silent at the airport. United says they don't have enough staff and fuel costs are too high for the small number of flights. They are focusing on big cities and dropping small towns to protect profits. United is now putting all its resources into major cities. They're cutting off the heart of America. In just 12 months, 19 mid-sized cities were removed from the United network. 6 airports have no more traditional airlines at all. This loss of connection is not just about travel. It hurts farming, education, healthcare, and basic life in rural America. When people in the middle of the country can't reach the coasts, and the government stays silent, America stops being a united nation. It starts to look like a broken puzzle. Have you flown from a small town with United before? Is that flight still there? What do you feel when places in the middle of America are forgotten? Please share your story. If United, with all its money and history, is cutting ties, what about smaller airlines? How will they survive? In the next part, we look at a painful truth. Contour and Silver Airlines, the last two serving small towns, are also shutting down. For many rural and mountain towns, Contour and Silver are not just airlines, they are lifelines. One flight a day meant one chance to reach the outside world. One chance to get medical care, attend college, or be at a family event. These towns didn't need a big airport. They just needed one seat. One trip. But now, even that is gone. In June 2025, Contour Airlines stopped flying to 13 small cities in the South and Midwest. Silver Airways also stopped all flights in the Appalachia and Florida Panhandle regions. That means 28 towns and small cities now have 0 commercial flights. JetBlue is gone. United is gone. And now even Contour and Silver are gone. Experts say this is because the U.S. government has cut support for small-town flights. These flights had fewer passengers. But their costs were 2 to 3 times higher due to maintenance, pilots, and ground services. The budget is not enough to keep these flights going. Many towns in Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky are now 6 hours away from the nearest airport. What does this mean? No long-distance jobs. No studying at universities in other states. No fast help during floods or storms. People often say America is a country that can take off anytime. But now, some places can only look at the sky because they can't take off at all. When even the smallest and kindest airlines have to leave, the question becomes, who is still allowed to fly? Have you flown from a small airport that only had 1 or 2 flights a day? Do you have family in remote areas where flights are the only way to get medical care or attend events? Please share your town's name in the comments. Let the country know that these places still matter. From Play Airlines to JetBlue, from Air Canada to Contour, the airlines are not just leaving America. They are breaking a promise that every citizen, no matter where they live, should have a chance to connect. So, what has America lost after 10 airlines pulled away? Is there a way back? Or is America, once a symbol of worldwide connection, now quietly closing its airports one by one? In this video, we saw 10 airlines, international and domestic, leaving the United States or cutting off small towns. From Iceland to Canada, from Germany to Australia, from big cities to tiny places you may have visited. No more airplane sounds. No more passengers. No more connection. This is not just the fall of tourism. It's the fall of trust. It's when people no longer see America as a place to visit. It's when even Americans can no longer reach each other. Behind the numbers, there are real people. A father misses his daughter's graduation. A teacher can't get to the hospital. An elderly couple is too afraid to visit their children in the US. These are not counted in GDP, but they are the true heartbeat of a country. Have you noticed your local airport looking emptier than before? Was there a flight you used to take that's now gone? What do you think is the biggest loss when airlines leave the US? Please share in the comments. Each story, each memory, each voice helps us understand what's really happening. If this video made you feel something, hit subscribe. Join us in future videos where we explore not just facts but feelings, questions, and truths that others don't dare to ask. This video was made for analysis and education. It uses public data, airline reports, and community feedback. Images shown are general and not linked to any real person or place. All views are shared to help people think more deeply. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.